Weddings in my family have always been big. Not just the usual ceremony and cake big. I mean the kind that eats up weekends, gets planned over years, and somehow involves 20 group chats and 5 opinionated aunts before a venue's even booked. So when my sister Chloe got engaged, I expected the same storm of excitement, chaos, and last-minute changes. What I didn't expect was to be left out of all of it. Not forgotten. Not overlooked. Just deliberately removed. It started small. Little things. Group texts that once included me started showing up with weird gaps. I'd hear something from my cousin Tessa, then check my phone and see nothing. Family Zoom calls where Chloe would say things like, "Oh, we've already talked about that with everyone," when I'd clearly been left out. Still, I brushed it off. Thought maybe I'd just missed an update. Or that people assumed I was too busy. Because that's always been my role in this family, the easy one. The one who never made it about him. The one who understood. But understanding can't replace being seen. Then, the official invites went out. Big envelopes. Gold trim. Wax seal. Full Pinterest board aesthetic. They showed up in everyone's mailboxes the same week. Except mine. At first, I thought it was a mail error. So I called my mom, Diane, to ask if maybe it was sent to the wrong address. She hesitated, then said, "Ethan, it's complicated." And I already knew. I knew before she tried to spin it. Before she said, "Chloe just wants a smaller event. And you know how she gets. And it's her day, and she needs it to feel right." I let her finish. Then asked the only question that mattered. "So I'm not invited?" There was a pause. Then, "She thought it might be better if you just came to the after-party. Less pressure. You can still celebrate, just not the ceremony." That sentence, "less pressure," hit like a slap. As if my presence was a burden. As if I'd somehow made this about me just by existing. I hung up and sat in silence. Not angry. Not even shocked. Just tired. Because this wasn't new. This was years of being the second thought. The understanding one. The one who didn't need the spotlight, so it was okay to leave him in the shadows. I didn't call Chloe. I didn't beg for a seat at the table. I made a different choice. I booked a vacation. Same weekend. Round-trip ticket, beachside Airbnb, 0 family notifications. The only person I told was Mason, my cousin and one of the few people in the family who's never made me feel invisible. His reply? "Good. Go somewhere you're wanted." That week, my phone blew up with wedding prep photos. Centerpieces. Cake tastings. Chloe was beaming with my parents on her left, Tessa on her right. And me? Not even mentioned. Not even missed. I flew out Friday morning. No texts. No calls. No. "We wish you were here." And when I landed? I turned my phone on silent, walked straight to the ocean, and stood there for a long time, not because I was escaping anything. But because for the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd chosen myself. That first full day of vacation? Perfect. Salt air. Quiet streets. No one was asking for favors or explaining why my role in the family needed to be the easy one. I had coffee by the shore. Took long walks with my playlist on shuffle. Read a book I hadn't touched in months. Watched the sky go gold behind the water and thought, this is what peace feels like when it doesn't have strings attached. Then my phone buzzed. Once. Then again. Then again. The group chat, the one I hadn't heard from in days, suddenly came alive. At first, I ignored it. But something about the timing made me pause. The wedding was supposed to be in full swing. Why were they texting now? I opened the thread. The first message was from Tessa. "OMG. You are not going to believe what just happened." Then from Aunt Dana. "Someone call me. This is a disaster." Then my mom, Diane, directly. "Can you talk?" That one made me sit up. She hadn't reached out once since telling me Chloe wanted me at just the after party. Now suddenly, I was the one she needed. I took a breath and called Mason. He answered with a half laugh. "So you've heard? Not the details." "Well, Chloe's wedding didn't exactly make it past the ceremony." I blinked. "What?" The groom's ex showed up. With receipts. Receipts? Messages. Photos. Dates that overlap. He's been cheating. For a while. She waited until vows were about to be exchanged, then stood up and read the text in front of everyone. I didn't speak. Not because I didn't believe him, but because I wasn't shocked. I liked Chloe's fiancé, sure. But there was always something slippery about him, all charm, no depth. And Chloe? She was always more in love with the idea of the wedding than the person she was marrying. Mason continued. She ran out, crying. My mom tried to talk to her. Diane's losing it. And now everyone's just standing around in shock. I sat there, listening to the waves crash. And somewhere between the disbelief and the irony, I felt something I didn't expect. Relief. Not because it fell apart, but because I wasn't there. Because if I had been, I'd have been the one trying to fix it. Calming everyone down. Holding the pieces together while no one remembered I was excluded to begin with. I called Diane back. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was tense, frantic. Ethan, honey, it's been awful. Chloe's locked herself in the dressing room. People are leaving. Your father's trying to speak with the caterers, but... I cut her off gently. Why are you calling me? She paused. Because you're the one who always knows what to say. There it was. The invisible role I was always given. Fixer. Peacemaker. Background glue. But not a guest. I asked. Does Chloe know you called me? Another pause. No. But I figured she'd want to hear from you. You're her brother. I sat with that. Funny. Didn't feel like I was her brother when I didn't get an invitation. Silence. Then. She was stressed. It was a mistake. No. It was a decision. And so was this vacation. I didn't yell. Didn't say anything cruel. Just told her the truth. I'm not coming back early. I'm not showing up to fix it. Not this time. She didn't fight me. Just let out a quiet breath and said, I get it. I'm sorry. Maybe she was. But that apology wasn't for me. It was for the version of me she expected to say, It's okay, Mom. I'll be there. And that version? He stayed home this time. The message came at 1:42 a.m. I'd just come back in from the balcony, sand still between my toes, headphones in, lost in the kind of late-night quiet you only find near the ocean. I wasn't checking my phone. But the screen lit up, and her name was there. Chloe. First contact in weeks. No emoji. No passive-aggressive ellipses. Just a short text. Can we talk? I stared at it for a while. Not angry. Not eager. Just curious. Because I didn't know which version of her was about to show up. I said yes. A few minutes later my phone rang. She sounded small. Not broken, not sobbing. Just quiet in a way I'd never heard before. She said, I know I don't deserve this call. I waited. She continued. I messed up. I know that now. I wanted the wedding to feel perfect, and somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that meant cutting out anything complicated. Including you? I said nothing. Not to punish her, but because this time, she needed to sit in the space she used to fill with justifications. She kept going. You've always been the one who keeps things calm. The one who doesn't make it about themselves. I thought. I don't know. That you wouldn't mind. There it was. The root of everything. That's because I didn't ask to be seen, they thought I didn't need to be. I finally spoke. So I was excluded because I made it easy for you? She was quiet. Then? Yes. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't cruel. It was honest. And somehow, that hurt more. She told me what happened. How her fiancé's ex stood up just as the vows were starting. How she read the messages, handed out printed screenshots, and looked her directly in the eyes as she said, You deserve to know who he really is before you say I do. Chloe said the room went silent. Her knees buckled. That our dad had to help her off the stage. She said. Everything fell apart in front of me. And I kept thinking, if you were here, you'd know what to do. I sighed. That's the problem, Chloe. I always know what to do. And no one stops to ask if I want to. There was a pause. And then she said the one thing I didn't expect, You shouldn't have to carry us just because we're used to leaning on you. That hit different. Not because it fixed anything, but because for once she said the quiet part out loud. We didn't talk long after that. She apologized again. Didn't ask me to come back. Didn't try to guilt me. Didn't beg. She just said, "If you ever want to talk again, I'll be here. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. But I am asking you to know that I see it now. All of it." I said, "Okay." And meant it. Not as forgiveness. As acknowledgement. After the call, I sat on the floor with a blanket around my shoulders and thought about all the versions of me my family had relied on. The fixer. The understanding. 1. The emotional pressure valve no one talks about until they need him to absorb the blow. And how, for once, I had taken none of that with me. And yet, I felt more whole than I had in years. The next day, I walked the shoreline. Watched the gulls spin in tight, lazy circles. A couple passed by with matching sandals and tan smiles, holding hands like they hadn't watched the world burn this week. I smiled. Because peace doesn't mean everything's fine. Sometimes it just means you're not in the fire this time. Coming home was different this time. Not because the house had changed, but because I had. I took my time. Extended my trip a few extra days. Sat on the beach until I stopped counting how long the waves held their breath between breaks. When I finally booked my return, I didn't announce it. Didn't text the group chat. Didn't tell Chloe. Just came home like a guest checking into a quiet hotel, where the staff doesn't know your name anymore. My parents were in the kitchen when I walked in. Diane turned, surprised. "Ethan! I didn't know you were back today." I smiled politely. "Yeah. Figured I'd just slip in." She gave me a long look, trying to read if I was angry, sad, or holding a grudge. But I wasn't holding anything. Because there was nothing left to carry. Mark, my dad, stood up and offered a pat on the back. Not a hug. Just the formal, awkward greeting reserved for men who don't know how to handle emotional tension, so they default to vague warmth. "Glad you're back," he said. I nodded. "No." "How was your trip?" "No. We missed you." "Just glad you're back." Like I was a misplaced sock found in the dryer. Later that evening, Chloe came by. She knocked. Didn't just walk in like she used to. When I opened the door, she looked smaller, like the version of herself she used to be before the wedding planning took over her life. She said, "I'm not here to rehash everything. I just wanted to see you in person." I let her in. We sat at opposite ends of the living room. She told me she'd canceled the honeymoon. Said she needed space more than scenery. She wasn't trying to spin anything. No. It happened for a reason. Nonsense. Just the truth. Raw. Stripped down. She looked around the room like she didn't belong in it anymore. "It's weird being here," she said. "It used to feel like mine," I replied without thinking. "That's how I felt the whole time you were planning the wedding." She winced, but nodded. We talked for maybe 20 minutes. Nothing profound. But real. She didn't ask me to forgive her. She didn't promise to change everything. She just told me this. "I always thought you were the strong one because you never made a scene. Now I think maybe you were strong because you stopped pretending everything was okay." That stuck. Because she was right. The next few days were quiet. Everyone walked more softly around me. Like I was still angry, or worse, like I might leave again without warning. But I wasn't holding that power over them. I just wasn't offering it up like I used to. I ate dinner in silence. Did my laundry without asking. Left the house without explaining. And slowly, they started to get it. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a boundary. One morning, my mom tried again. She came into my room, holding a mug of tea like a peace offering. "You've been distant." I looked up. "I've been present. Just not performing." That stopped her. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to make her feel better about hurting me. I wasn't saying, "It's okay." Because it wasn't. "And that's allowed?" She nodded slowly. "We should have handled it differently." "Yeah. I'm sorry." "Okay." No more dramatics. No emotional monologue. Just truth sitting between us like a folded napkin, clean and used, and finally on the table. I left again the next morning. Not in anger. Not because I wasn't welcome. But because peace is a space you build, not a seat they give back when it's convenient. After I left again, things felt different. Not dramatic. Not cold. Just clear. The silence between us didn't feel like punishment anymore, it felt like a reset. I wasn't waiting for texts. Wasn't crafting polite replies to guilt-laced check-ins. I wasn't trying to maintain an image of the good son, just to keep the mood light. For the first time, I wasn't performing for them. And it was peaceful. I spent the next week back in my place, pouring myself into the parts of life I chose. Work. Reading. Friendships that didn't come with subtext. Long walks. Short calls with people who didn't need me to carry every conversation. I saw Mason that Friday. We grabbed dinner, real food, not takeout, and sat outside while the air started turning crisp. He asked if things were better now. I said, "No. They're just not worse. And that's enough for me right now." Then he leaned in a little and said, "You know, I think Chloe finally understands what you've been holding for all these years." I didn't ask for proof. Didn't need her to say it in front of everyone. Because truth doesn't always need to be heard out loud, sometimes it just has to stop being denied. A few days later, Chloe emailed me. Not a text. Not a call. An actual email. It was long. Not dramatic. Not weepy. Just honest. She talked about therapy. About unlearning the idea that boundaries equals betrayal. About how she's starting to understand that keeping the peace often meant choosing comfort over connection. She ended it with this. "You don't owe me anything, Ethan. But if we ever build something again, I want it to be real, not polite. Not silent. Real." That line stuck with me. Because polite and silent had been our family's native language for years. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I didn't want to rush into reconnection just to make her feel better. This time, I'd go at my own pace. Meanwhile, my parents tried their version of repair. Diane started forwarding articles, sending me passive little links like, "How to rebuild family trust. When you've hurt someone you love. The power of showing up." It was her version of reaching out, indirect, quiet, slightly cowardly. But I saw the effort. An effort, even if awkward, still counts more than denial. Eventually, I did reply. I wrote one short message to the family group thread. Just said, "I'm open to rebuilding. But not to pretend nothing happened. If we want something new, we have to stop repeating the old." That message sat there for 2 days before anyone replied. Then Chloe. "I'm in. Fully." Then Mason. "Always." Then finally Diane. "I'm trying. I'm sorry. I'm listening." That was all I needed. Not perfection. Just proof they'd stopped assuming I'd bounce back without being asked. I didn't plan a big reunion. Didn't stage a forgiveness dinner. But the next time, Chloe asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I said yes. And this time, when we sat across from each other, I didn't feel like someone who got left out. I felt like someone who walked away with purpose, and let them catch up only when they were finally ready to walk differently, too. Peace didn't come all at once. It came in quiet waves. Slow, steady. A conversation here. A boundary was held there. It wasn't about making things perfect with my family. It was about finally making me a priority in my own story. My relationship with Chloe didn't magically fix itself. But it's real now. We talk. We ask harder questions. We don't fill space with empty pleasantries anymore. Last month, she invited me over for dinner, just the two of us. No parents. No cousins. No emotional landmines waiting in the salad. At one point, she asked, "What does moving forward actually look like for you?" And for the first time, I had an answer. "It means never again pretending I'm okay with being treated like a backup plan." She nodded. There. And that was it. No tears. No long apologies. Just two adults finally learning how to relate as siblings, not co-stars in a family drama where I was cast as the strong one who doesn't need anything. My parents? That's a slower climb. But I'm okay with slow. Because fast is how we ended up here, brushing things off, skipping real conversations, stuffing guilt into casseroles and birthday cards. Now, We take pauses. When my mom calls, she asks if I want to talk, not just assumes I'll absorb whatever she's feeling. When my dad sends a text, it comes with punctuation now. And intention. And I respond when I feel like it. Not out of duty, but from a place of choice. That's what healing looks like in real time. Not grand gestures. Just different patterns. As for me, I've stopped waiting for the version of the family I thought I deserved. I've stopped trying to prove I'm easy to love by being easy to forget. And I've started building a life where I'm not constantly measuring my value by how well I manage everyone else's discomfort. I spend more time with friends who ask how I'm doing, and stay long enough to hear the real answer. I've made peace with solitude, not the kind that feels like exile, but the kind that feels like a room I finally decorated with only things I chose. And I've started writing again. Just for me. Journals full of things I used to keep buried under. Don't make waves. And just be grateful. I'm not writing to be read. I'm writing to remember who I was before I got so good at disappearing quietly. Chloe once told me, I thought being strong meant never needing anything. Now I know the truth. Real strength is saying what you need before it's too late. And walking away if they keep pretending they didn't hear you. I didn't ruin my sister's wedding. I didn't make a scene. Didn't demand a seat. Didn't even raise my voice. I just refused to play a part in a story that never had a role for me to begin with. And somehow, that caused more reflection than any fight ever could. Now, when I walk into a room, I don't wonder where I belong. Because I already built that space. And it has my name on the door.